Hi guys, welcome back to my miniature things. My name is Saeed. I was thinking we haven't done a doll's day out in a while. So pack your doll suitcases and grab your miniature passports because we're heading to Paris. Now, a lot of you have been asking me to do a coffee shop build for the longest time, and I just got the perfect Paris backdrop. So I thought, why not bring the two together? So today we're not only gonna be making a coffee shop, but we're gonna be making a Parisian coffee shop. And I already know it's gonna be the moment. So if you want to see how to build your own coffee shop in Paris, just keep watching. And stay tuned till the end of the video because I may or may not be setting up for something major. Here we are in Paris. I got this background on Amazon. It was only $9.99. I just typed in Paris background and it popped right up. Obviously, I got this background for the Eiffel Tower. We are not going to be using all of this up here in the front, although it is beautiful. I'm going to cover all of that. I'm just thinking to do like a coffee shop over here on this side, maybe like some sort of like a walkway in the middle, and then some vendors over here on the left. But first, let's start with the piece in the middle, the little walkway area. And for this, I'm going to use a sheet of foam board. It measures 20 inches this way and 30 inches this way. I also have this stone tile printable tile. Is this a tile? I think tiles are for inside. No, there's outside tiles. I don't know. Whatever this is, I have a printable of this. So let's cut off the excess, glue it to my sheet of foam board. Actually, change of plans. I decided to add a 10-inch extension on the side of my 20 by 30-inch piece using a piece of duct tape. And I covered the entire thing in my stone tile printable, giving us a sidewalk or a street or whatever you want to call it that measures 40 inches by 20 inches. Also, I Googled the name of this flooring and it's called Cobblestone. I really should have known that. Actually, I think I did know that. I just forgot. So now that we have our cobblestone floor, which is very Parisian, let's start working on a little wall for back here so that we can block off all of these tiny little cars because those are definitely not 1/6 scale. Let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 2.5 inches by 7 inches and a second piece that measures 2 inches by 7 inches. And I'm just going to join them on the side that measures 7 inches, a second 2 by 7 inch piece on the other side, and another 2.5 by 7 inch piece to close it off. We are going to use this as one of the posts for our wall. So as for the top, let's cut a piece that measures 3 inches by 3 inches, another piece that measures 2.5 by 2.5 inches, and one last piece that measures 2 inches by 2 inches. And we're going to place them together just like this, giving us a post cap that we can place on the top of our post to finish it off. Now you could totally stop here, but I'm going to take it a step further and add a piece that measures 1.25 inches by 5 inches to the front. Fill up one of our Temu molds with some hot glue, let it cool down completely and peel it off and place it on the front of our post to add a little bit more detail. I then repeated all of those steps to make 3 more, giving me a total of 4 posts. Now let's make the actual wall part, like the part that goes in between the posts, the part that's actually going to block off all of those tiny little cars. I cut a piece that measures 6 inches by 10 inches, and I'm going to use this mold that I also found on Temu to make some more hot glue molding that we can use to add some definition to our wall. Cut a piece that measures 1.25 inches by 10 inches and place it on the top, making sure that it's placed in the middle. And now I can place it in between our posts, like so. Repeat to make another one for in between these posts, and then one last one for over here on this side. All right, now that we've blocked off all of those tiny little cars, this looks a lot more realistic. Well, except for the color. So let's fix that because it doesn't match our floor or our background. I'm going to go try spray painting it in this multicolored texture spray from Rust-Oleum. I believe I found this either at Lowe's or at Home Depot or Michael's or one of them. They all have it. Oh, I also have these tiny little pots that I want to spray paint and add to the top of the wall, like on the post. So yeah, I just wanted to show you what they look like before I spray painted them. Okay, I'm back and I think it looks amazing, but I did run out of the original spray paint that I showed you guys, and I had a little bit of the foam board peeking through. So I went in with a darker spray paint to kind of cover that up, and I don't know, I kind of like messed it up a bit. I don't really like the way that the darker spray paint looks on the lighter spray paint, but it's okay because having the whole wall one color was not my vision. This was kind of more of my vision. Well, not really. I feel like I went a little bit too heavy-handed with the paint, but I want this wall to look more of like an older wall, like a Parisian wall, like a wall that you would see in Paris, like covered in like moss and stuff like that. Not like a brand new build, you know what I mean? So even though this isn't exactly what I had in mind, I think we're just gonna keep going with it and hope and pray to God that in the end it all comes together. Because she's not looking too hot over here on this side, but I am going to show you how I created that look over here on this side, just in case it does come out good and you guys do want to recreate it. Let's start off with a little bit of brown paint and a little bit of green paint. This is the brush that I'm going to use, you guys. This is what it looks like. I don't really know the name of the brush, but yeah, it's kind of like a stiff, fluffy brush, if that makes any sense. I'm just going to dip into my green right here. And I'm going to go right here in into this corner and add some of that green. And obviously this looks way too green and just not natural. So let's now pick up some of the brown and go in right over top of the green. So once I have something that looks like this, I'm just gonna go in with a sponge. This is one of my old beauty blenders, and I'm just gonna blend this into the background so that it's not so harsh until I end up with something that looks like this. And then I go in and I repeat for the other side, and I continue that process all the way around using my sponge to dab off the excess. Once the outsides of my molding is painted, I'm just going to use the remainder that's left on the brush and kind of like go in and dab in between the spaces of the molding, kind of just like freely. Like you can see, I'm not being too careful with this. I'm just kind of going wherever there's a space. And then again, I'm going to go in with my sponge and clean up any of the excess and kind of just like blend it into the background. I repeated it for the middle panel, and I also added in the little flower pots that I painted earlier. And you guys, I think this came out pretty good. Now let's add in a little bit of greenery just to give it more life. Add some flowers to our little pot to give us our finished Parisian wall. Don't mind that highlighter green spot right over there. The glue is still drying, so hopefully it dries clear. But you guys, I am obsessed with this. This literally came out exactly what I had pictured in my mind. I know in the beginning I was kind of doubting myself, like when I painted that section over there, but sometimes you just have to learn to trust the process, okay? Hello, it worked out perfectly. Here is a close-up of what she looks like. As I said, this came out absolutely perfect to me, well, except for this little spot right over here, but give her time, she will dry. Now let's move on to our little vendors that I said that I wanted to put like right over here. I was thinking maybe like a flower vendor, since this is going to be a romantic spot that people are probably going to come to look at the Eiffel Tower and go on a date at the coffee shop. So I think a flower shop would be a really cute touch. Let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 3 inches by 5 inches. And as you can see, I already covered it in this contact paper that I found at my local dollar store, Dollar Tree to be exact. And a second piece that measures 1¼ inches by 5 inches. And as you can see, I rolled my contact paper over the edge, and I'm just going to place this right on the top of this piece like this, leaving about a 1/4 inch overhang like that. Our third piece measures 6½ inches by 5 inches. And as you can see, I only covered the top half of it because the bottom half we're not going to see. And that's because we're placing this piece that we just made right over top of the piece that's not covered, making sure the 2 pieces down at the bottom are level. Our next piece measures 1½ inches by 5 inches. And again, I rolled the edge of the 5-inch side on this piece, and I'm going to place this on top here, leaving that 1/4 inch overhang just like we did for this piece. To fill in this section right here, I cut a piece that measures 2 inches by 5 inches, and I'm going to place this right here at an angle. Cut a piece that measures 11½ inches by 5 inches, and I cover again only the top portion of it, and that's because I'm going to place the piece that we've been making right over top, making sure that the bottom of it, all of it, is equal like this. I cut one side of my side piece at an angle, giving me one side that measures 13 inches, the other side measures 11½ inches, and then it is 3 inches across, making sure to roll my contact paper on both sides over the edge. I then made a cutout about 7½ inches away from the bottom. It measures 2 inches by 3½ inches, and I'm just going to place it right over here on the side of the piece that we've been making. I then repeat to make another one for the other side, making sure to place my 11½ inch side on the back. And then for the top, I cut a piece that measures 5½ by 6¼ and this one I rolled all of my sides, making sure to cover both of my sides, and then I place it on the top. And then I'm going to use my cutouts from my windows to make a little box that we can place on the side of the window. I repeated it for the other side, and now we can use it as a flower planter. And look at how adorable. I then printed off a few signs for our flower stall. As you can see, they are all in French. So let's cut them out. And I'm going to place one up here, another one down here, and the third one, which is a chalkboard, over here on the side. Add a few more flowers. Now, since this is a flower stall, we obviously need some flowers to sell. Hello. I have a few of these caps that I've been saving for my spray paint bottles, and I was thinking that we can use them to pot some plants. I ended up making 6 of them that we can place in our little flower stall so that the dolls have something to buy. Let's also cut a piece of brown craft paper down to about 2 inches by 2 inches and place some flowers and some greenery on the inside. Fold in one corner like this and the other corner like this to give us some tiny little bouquets of flowers that we can place inside of our flower shop. And then this empty space right here is driving me insane, so I made a tiny little sign that says fresh bouquets, and I'm just gonna place this right down here. I don't know if you've noticed, but our sign says bouquets, roses, and lavender. We have bouquets, roses. And here's our lavender that we can place in this little pot and place it right down here on the side. Add in a couple more plants just to amplify the effect. And you guys, this came out so stinking cute. I am obsessed. Now, since I did say that this is going to be the area where all the vendors are going to be, I was thinking that this is the perfect opportunity to bring back the hot chocolate card from our Christmas Village video. This video right here. If you haven't seen that video yet, check it out. It's really good. But I was thinking that we could put her right over here. Super duper cute. So now that we have our vendor area complete, let's move on to our coffee shop. Okay, I felt like something was missing, so I added some moss to it, and you guys, now I think it's absolutely perfect. Okay, now let's move on to the coffee shop. Let's start off with the floor of our coffee shop. It measures 21.5 inches this way and 16 inches this way. I then made a cutout from one of the sides, making sure that this piece right here measures about 13 inches. Over here is about 7 inches. And then this piece up here is about 12.5 inches. I want to use this wood plank craft paper to cover my entire piece, but I only have 3 pieces of this. So let me go see if I can work some magic and make this actually work. All right, I was able to get it. And notice how I rolled my craft paper around the 13-inch side, and that's because we are going to put a doorway right here, so we don't want to see the raw edge of the foam board when the door is open. Now let's start making the back wall. I cut a piece of foam board down to 20 inches by 21.5 inches, and I'm going to cover it in these contact papers. This one I found at my local Dollar Tree, and this one I found on Amazon. It's a dark green. All right, that looks pretty good, but again, my contact paper didn't go all the way down to the bottom, but that's okay because we are going to make a really long counter going across the entire back wall to block that off. Also, I did have a little bit of a boo-boo right here, but again, that's okay because we're going to find something to block that off also. But for right now, let's start making our very long countertop. Let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 6.5 inches by 20 inches. And I'm going to cover the entire thing in this wood grain contact paper that I found on Amazon. Like this. And then I cut another piece that measures 2.5 inches by 5 inches. But this one, I not only cover the top of it, but I also make sure to roll my contact paper around the sides so that they're covered. I make 6 of those. I then place them all in pairs across my 6.5 by 20 inch piece. They are spaced about 1/4 inch away from each other, and each pair is about 1 inch away from the other. I also found these little door handles at Hobby Lobby. They're a little bit different from the ones that I usually use, and I thought they would be perfect for the handles for our cupboard. And I was right. They look super cute. These are the ones that we usually use. See how they're a little bit longer and thinner? Now let's cut 2 more pieces of foam board. They both measure 2.5 inches by 6.5 inches, and I'm going to place one of them over here on this side. These don't have to be covered because no one's ever going to see it. And we are going to place the other one on the other side. For the countertop, I cut a piece that measures 20 inches by 3.25 inches, and I cover it in this herringbone craft paper that I found at Joann's, and I'm just going to place it right on the top of our counter, making sure to leave this little overhang in the front. I also printed out this menu for our coffee shop, so I cut it out and I stick it to a piece of foam board, trim the edges with gold craft paper, add some of our gold molding to the top and a little bit on the sides to give us our menu for our coffee shop that we can place right back here on the wall over our countertop. Now, I kind of want to do something to kind of soften this line right here. So I cut a 1-inch strip of foam board down to about 13.5 inches, and I cover it in gold craft paper. Trim the sides with gold craft paper, and I use it to soften that line. Repeat for the other side, and now we have the finished back wall of our coffee shop. For the front counter where the cash register goes, I made a smaller counter using the same steps as we used to make that larger counter back there, but I skipped the doors. And as you can see, this one's not as wide as the one back there. It does measure 6.5 inches tall, but it's only 8 inches wide. I also made a couple signs that we can stick in the front. One says coffee shops, and then the other one is a pastry menu that I laminated with tape. So since we have a pastry menu, now we have to make a place to put the pastries. And I was thinking that we can put the pastry display right here on the right side of the counter. So let's start by cutting 2 pieces. This one measures 4 inches by 8 inches, and this one measures 4 inches by 2.5 inches. I cover them both in my wood grain contact paper, and I stick them together like this on the side that measures 4 inches. For the bottom, I cut a piece that measures 2.5 inches by 7.5 inches, and I place it down in the corner like this. This piece does not have to be covered because no one's going to see it. The next piece also measures 2.5 by 7 inches, but as you can see, I covered this one in gold craft paper, and I'm going to place this one on the inside about 1/4 inch away from the edge. Add a 2.5 by 4 inch piece over here on this side, and another 4 by 8 inch piece in the back. Trim all of my edges in gold craft paper. So by now you should have something that looks like this. This is going to be the base of our display case. Now let's make the top part, like the part where all the pastries go. Let's start again with another piece that measures 2.5 by 8 inches, and this piece, as you can see, I covered it in my brown wood grain contact paper on one side, and the other side I covered it in my gold craft paper. Then I cut a piece of plexiglass that measures measures 2 inches by 5 inches, and I'm going to place it on the side that measures 2.5 inches, making sure that the gold paper and the plexiglass are on the same side. Cut a 1/4 inch of foam board down to 4 3/4 inches, and as you can see, I don't have these sides covered, but the back sides are covered in my gold craft paper, and I'm going to place it over here on the side of our plexiglass, making sure that the side that I place on the plexiglass is not covered, and then the side that's facing forward is also not covered. This 1/4 inch strip measures 2 1/4 inches long, and as you can see, I covered it on all 3 sides. I skipped the back side, and I'm going to place that side that's not covered against the plexiglass in the middle. Whoops! I then repeated the same thing for the other side, and now I can place my front piece that measures 5 inches by 7.5 inches right over the tops of those foam boards. Use strips of gold craft paper to cover up our white foam board edges, and I do it all the way around so it's nice and clean. For the shelf on the inside, I cut a piece that measures 2 1/4 inches by 7, a little bit less than 7.5 inches, and I'm just going to place it right in here on top of those pieces of foam board. Okay, I'm just realizing that I didn't place these things in the middle like I was supposed to, so I have a really big space down here, like the bottom shelf is huge. So I think just to offset that and kind of just like utilize that space, I am gonna add another shelf down here. And if my measurements were correct, this should slide right inside of this piece. Add in the second one since I messed up the first one. Add a little sign, some tiny little molding for decoration. And now we have a place that our dolls can store their pastries in the coffee shop. I was also thinking to bring back the cash register that we made in our bakery video because it matches. But now I think we need some tables and chairs. So let's make some. Let's start with the table. We are going to use this glue mold to make the base of it. So I cut out the middle, cut a wooden dowel down to about 5 inches, and I place it in my cutout. Cut a piece of foam board the same size as my molding, and I'm going to stick that together just to add some more stability to the bottom. Spray painted black, and now we have the bottom of our table, the stand, the leg, whatever you want to call it. And we have 2 options for the tabletop. This is option number 1. It's basically 2 pieces of foam board put together. It measures 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And this is how that one looks. It matches the restaurant perfectly, almost too perfectly. And this is option number 2. This is a coaster that I've had for a while now. I believe I got it at Home Goods a while ago. And this is what that one looks like. I just feel like it looks super Parisian. I don't know. I really can't make up my mind. So I think we should make the chairs first, see what the chairs look like, and then we can pick the tabletop. And I'm not gonna lie, I am kind of nervous just because I want a specific type of chair, like those chairs that you see in Paris, like a bistro chair, kind of like this one right here. So let's start cutting a piece of foam board down to about 2 inches by 3 inches. Place a doll sitting on my piece and use a pencil to draw a rough sketch as to where the doll's body fits on my piece of foam board. When I am done sketching all the way around the doll's body, I cut it out and use a piece of sandpaper. This one I believe is 120 grit, 220 grit actually, to clean up the edges. Once I'm happy with the shape of my seat, I'm gonna use some burlap to cover my piece. I'm gonna cover the top and roll the sides onto the back like this. And notice how even though we have rounded corners on this side, we have 3 straight sides. We have one here, here, and here, but this part up here is completely rounded. I'm telling you this because this plays an important role in the next step. Speaking of which, I cut a welding rod down to about 14 inches. I'm using a welding rod, but you can use any wire that you like. Just make sure it's sturdy enough to hold a doll's weight. I then measure 3 inches from one side and I make a mark on my welding rod. And then we're actually gonna flip it over and repeat the same thing for the other side. So now you should have a marking 3 inches away from this edge and same thing over here on this side. 3 inches from this edge. Now remember, I said that I want to make bistro chairs, and those chairs are usually made out of straw. So I think I'm going to use some of this twine and see if we can emulate straw using this twine. Let's start by placing the twine onto our welding rod going this way. And I'm just going to wrap it a little bit going up and then start going back in the other direction, like this, and I'll probably add a bead of glue right there just to hold that in place. And then I'm just going to spin the rod while holding the rope in place, wrapping the twine or the rope, I don't really know what you want to call this, but wrapping it around my welding rod going all the way down until I get to my other 3-inch mark. I use a little bit of glue to secure it, and now I'm just going to take my scissors and trim off the excess. So your welding rod or your wire should look like this. The middle of it should be covered in the twine or the rope, and then 3 inches on either side where it's not covered at all. Now I'm just going to grab this roll of contact paper and place the middle of my welding rod right here and just bend it around to get a nice curve like this. So this is where the front and the back of the seat comes into play. Remember I said the straight part is the front and then the round part is the back. So I'm going to take something pointy. This is my little awl. And I'm just eyeballing this, you guys. I'm gonna make a hole right about here going all the way through my piece. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Again, I'm just gonna eyeball this. I think right about here is good. And I'm just gonna take my awl and go right through it. Now that I have two kind of symmetrical holes, I'm gonna use this piece and insert the ends of my welding rod into those holes. And I'm gonna push it all the way in till it meets the rope. Obviously, these two pieces down here are going to be our chair legs, and chair legs are not shaped like that. So let's use our pliers and kind of just bend them outwards just a little bit on both sides. And now we are going to do the same thing for, this is going to be the backrest, if I didn't say that already. We're going to bend it backwards just a little bit. Same thing for the other side. And now I'm going to use my rope or twine. We're just going to call it rope. I can't say rope or twine every single time. This is rope. We are going to take this and start wrapping the legs just to cover them up so that they match the rest of the chair. All right, it's not looking too bad. For the backrest, let's use another piece of foam board and press it right up against the back of the chair like this, making sure to leave this little space right here about 3/4 of an inch, and see how the edge of my foam board is parallel to my seat. That's what you want. Now I'm gonna go in with my pencil and trace around the inside of this piece onto the foam board. Cut it out and use some sandpaper to smoothen the edges. And I think I'm going to use this color burlap to cover the backrest instead of the same color as we used for the seat, just to add some contrast. And I made sure to cover the front and the back so that it looks good when the chair is facing backwards. And if my measurements were correct, this should slide in here perfectly. Now we need to make some front legs. I cut a piece of my welding rod down to about 7 3/4 inches. Cover it in my twine or my rope. Which one did we decide on? I don't remember, but it's covered. I then bent it into the shape, making sure that these two pieces measure 3 inches each. And now I'm going to stick this right under my chair about 1/4 inch away from the edge at an angle, kind of like this. While that's drying, let's cut 3 pieces of our rod down to 4 inches each and 1 piece down to 3.5 inches. And again, I covered them all in my string. You guys, honestly, this is taking so long to do that it's so long in between takes. That's why I can't remember what I called it in the last take. But now let's use something smaller than the roll of contact paper to bend a 3.5 inch piece around it, just like we did for the backrest, and place it in between the two front legs like this. Let's repeat with the 4-inch pieces, bending them around to get that nice curve. And we are going to place one of them here, another one over here, and the last one back here. Now let's use a little bit of twine to wrap all 3 of these pieces together. And I'm going to start wrapping about 1/4 inch away from the edge of the short ones and just go around maybe like 3 times. And of course, I did that for all 4 of my legs. My only problem is that I have all of these fuzzy things from the twine all over the entire chair, and even with the scissors, I can't get them all. So I'm just gonna go in with a lighter and just gently pass it all over the entire chair just to get rid of all of those fuzzies. Okay, honestly, that not only took off the fuzzies, but it kind of changed the color. I don't know if you guys can see the fuzzies or that the colors change on the camera, but it literally took the chair to a whole nother level. Like after doing that, now I can see my vision coming to life. Now let's add a 3-inch piece going across from this leg at the bottom down here to this leg, and another one from this leg to this leg. Burn off the fuzzies off of the X. Now I'm just going to lightly sketch out an oval in about the same shape as our seat, but in the back, I'm gonna make it a little bit narrower. Cut it out and cover it in a fabric of your choice. I'm using this blue and green plaid. I think it's very Parisian bistro. Place it on our chair, giving us our first finished Parisian bistro chair. And you guys, I am obsessed. I can't believe how good this came out. Like literally, I'm obsessed. I can die happy right now. And then the dreaded doom sets in that I have to make 6 more or 5 more to make 6 in total. So pray for me, you guys, because this one took 3 hours. That's why, honestly, I hate making chairs. Like, I avoid chairs at all costs, but this time we couldn't get around it, so I'll be back in a couple days. Okay, I am back with 5 more chairs. It didn't take me as long as I expected just because the first one did take me 3 hours. But once I got the hang of it, I got it down to about an hour for one of them. So now that we have all of our chairs, we can see which tabletop works best with our chairs. So again, here's option number 1, covered in the same contact paper as the countertop. And option number 2, which is the coaster from Home Goods. I think this one matches perfectly just because it has the lighter brown and the darker brown matching the chairs perfectly. I repeated to make 2 more, giving us lots of furniture for our coffee house, but you guys, it can't all fit inside. So I was thinking, let's make a patio so we can put the rest of the furniture outside. As you can see, I placed our coffee shop over there on the right, but I don't want it to be the same level as the rest of our set. I kind of want it to be a little bit more elevated. So let's just get this out of the way for a second. This too. And instead of building an entirely new platform, I'm just gonna stack a few pieces of foam board until I get the desired height. I ended up using about 7 layers of foam board to get the desired height, and these are all from past projects. That's why they were all covered. But now let's put down a fresh sheet of foam board, place my back wall and the rest of my coffee shop right where I want it to be. Use a pencil to trace around the coffee shop. And I'm gonna use this brown tile printable, yes, these ones are actually tile, to cover everything on this side of the coffee shop, covering up all of this white to create our patio, where we can place our tables and chairs. And you guys, not only was this so much more easier and less time consuming than making an entire platform for this piece, but now when I'm done using this set, I don't have an entire platform to find a place to store. And honestly, that's the best part for me because I'm completely out of space to store anything. But now that we have our patio, let's start making some walls for our coffee shop to bring this entire scene together. Let's start with our sidewall over here on the left. I cut a piece of foam board that measures 10 inches by 30 inches, and I cover one side in this stone printable and the other side in this moss green contact paper that I found on Amazon. I then made a couple cutouts for the windows. They both measure 4 by 6 inches. This is going to be our downstairs window. It measures 6 3/4 inches from the bottom, and the upstairs window measures 4 inches from the top. Add some plexiglass to the back of our opening. I just stuck it on there with some duct tape. So let's add some 3/4 inch strips of foam board to cover up the edges of the plexiglass and make a border for our window. Cut 2 1/4 inch strips of foam board down to about 6. Oh my God, oops. You guys, this shifted. Okay, crisis averted. Back to our 1/4 inch strips. We're gonna place them together like this and place them right in the middle of our window. Add a couple shorter strips going across on both sides. Cut a piece of fabric down to 8 inches by 10 inches. And we're gonna fold both of the 10-inch sides together like this. And I'm gonna go to my sewing machine and sew across here and down here. Then I flip it over, fold in the side that we didn't sew, and then go to my machine and sew over it. Let's also make 2 little pleats like this. Okay, I was about to iron this piece and press the pleats in when I came across this lace trim in my trim bin. So I added it to the side of my piece and I pressed my pleats, place it on the left side of my window, repeat to make another one for the other side. I then cut my lace trim down to about 24 inches and I sewed a zigzag stitch going all the way across from one side to the other. And now we're going to pull the bobbin thread and gather our fabric. You guys, it has to absolutely be the bobbin thread or else this is not going to work. And I keep pulling and gathering my fabric until my piece measures about 5 inches across. And now I can place it on top of my curtains, add some gold molding to the top, a couple gold beads for window handles, giving us our first completed window for inside of our coffee shop with curtains and a lace valance. Now let's work on the outside of our window. I cut a 3/4 inch strip of foam board down to about 4.5 inches and I placed one of my moldings on the top. Let's paint it white. While that's drying, let's cut a black piece of craft paper down to 6 inches by 2 inches and 2 pieces of foam board that measure 1.5 inches by 2 inches each, and I stick them together like this, and then I place them down to the bottom of the black piece of craft paper like this. Cut a 1/4 inch strip of foam board down to 4.5 inches and place it on the side of our black piece, and a 1/2 inch strip of foam board that measures 1.5 inches long on the top. Now let's take another 1/4 inch strip of foam board that measures 1.5 inches and I place it down to the bottom, leaving a tiny little space in between this piece right here and our 1/4 inch strip. Move up the same amount of space and place another 1/4 inch strip, and then repeat that over and over again until you get to the top. Add another 1/4 inch by 4.5 inch strip on this side, and then we're going to repeat all of those outside steps. So another 1/4 inch by 4.5 inch piece over this piece, another 1/2 inch by 1.5 inch piece up here, and one more 1/4 inch strip over here on this side. Add some molding to get that real Parisian feel. I then cut a sliver paper of foam board and turn it to the side, cut it in half, and place it right down the middle. Paint our glue molding white. While that one's drying, our first piece that we painted is now dried. So let's take a little bit of brown paint on a dry brush and just start dry brushing this to make it look a little bit more aged, because right now it's a little bit too white for our set. It just doesn't go. You can also see how the brown paint is just really bringing out that texture in the molding. And then I can place it right up here above our window on the outside. Let's also place some 1/4 inch strips on the outside of our window to cover up those glue marks and also add some texture to the outside. Let's also dry brush this piece and place it on the side of our window. Repeat to make another one for the other side. For down here, I cut a piece of foam board that measures 1.5 inches by 4 inches and another one that measures 1 inch by 1.5 inches, and I join them on the side that measures 1.5 inches. This piece measures 1.5 by 3.5 inches, and I place it down in the back in the corner. Another 1.25 by 1 inch piece on this side, and a 1.25 by 4 inch piece in the back. Add a glue molding to the front, paint it and add some plants to the inside, and place it right under our window in between our shutters. I then repeated all of those same steps for the upstairs window, but I used blue flowers instead of purple. And I kind of want to add a little bit of moss so that it ties in with the wall that we made earlier. And now we have our first finished wall of our Paris coffee house, you guys. This came out so good. I then repeated to make a second one that we can place right over here on this side. But now we need a front door, so let's make one. Let's start off with the actual wall first. I cut a piece of foam board down to 13 inches by 30 inches. I then covered my piece in my brick printable and my green contact paper, and I left a space right here just because we're going to cut that out. I went ahead and made a cutout for where the door is supposed to be. It measures 8 inches wide by 13 inches tall, and I also went ahead and made the upstairs window. Now let's make some doors. Cut a piece of foam board that measures 4 inches by 13 inches, and I made a cutout on the top that measures 2.5 inches by 6 inches. Cut a piece of plexiglass that also measures 4 inches by 13 inches and place it in the back. Make a second piece just like this piece and also place that in the back, sandwiching our plexiglass in the middle. Use 1/4 inch strips of foam board to fill in the middle, just like we did for the windows on both sides. And I'm going to use some of our molding to zhuzh it up a bit. Paint it white. Use 1/2 inch strips of white craft paper to clean up our edges. I also dry brushed it with some brown paint to make it look a little bit more worn, just like we did for the shutters. And I think I'm going to use the bigger handles that I showed you earlier when we were building the cupboards in there. I'm going to use that as our door handle. For the door hinges, I'm going to use these big ones that I found at Home Depot, just because I ran out of the small ones, and if I order it now, it's probably going to take like 2 weeks until we get them, so we're just going to have to go with these. So let's grab our piece, and I'm just going to hot glue this on right here, and another one down here, and I'm kind of just eyeballing the placement of these. Cut a 1/2 inch strip of foam board down to about 13 inches and place it over the left side of the hinges. Place our door onto our hinges. I repeated it for the other side and added some molding above the door. I also have a couple strips of foam board that I covered in my green contact paper all the way around, and I'm going to place these on the side. Let's also add some moss over the door and a few flowers. All right, this is looking really good so far. The only thing that's bothering me, like driving me insane, is that line up there between the green paper and the brick printable. So I was thinking that we can add an awning using this fabric over the door to cover up that line. I cut a piece of foam board that measures 5 inches by 13 inches, and as you can see, I used my fabric to cover it all the way around. And I also have this lace trim that I want to use to trim the edges. Super cute. And now I'm going to place this over the door at an angle. I'm also going to add a couple wooden dowels. As you can see, one of the sides is cut at an angle. It measures about 4 inches long, and I'm going to place the side with the angle against the wall, and the other side I'm going to use to prop up our awning. I also added some greenery on top of the awning, and I also did like a brown wash, like a light wash of paint over the entire awning just to make it look a little bit more worn. And last but not least, I have these 2 little wall lights that I found at Hobby Lobby, and I thought they would look perfect outside of our coffee shop. Perfection! But there's a couple more things that I want to do before we go, you guys. I promise it'll be really quick. I want to make a couple lampposts for up here just because that's very Parisian. And then I also want to make a little scenic viewer for back there so the dolls can see the Eiffel Tower like up close and personal. So let's make the scenic viewer first, and then we'll do the lamppost. Let's start off with 2 pieces of foam board. They both measure 1.75 inches by 2.5 inches, and I'm going to glue them together. Cut 3 1-inch strips down to 6.5 inches, and I'm also going to stick those together. Cover it in my silver craft paper, and I have this little printable of where you put the coins to use the machine. I'm just going to place this right here. Actually, before I place that on, I'm going to use my awl and measure down about 3/4 inch and make a little hole, making sure that it goes through all the way to the other side. Let's use my welding rod and go straight through that hole that we just made with the awl, making sure that it comes through the other side. Use my pliers to bend it at a 90-degree angle, about maybe an inch away from the actual piece. I'm just gonna bend upwards and repeat for the other side. Move up to about here and bend it inwards and repeat for the other side. Go to the middle and cut off the excess. Oh, cut off the excess. For the binoculars part of it, I cut two pieces that measure 1.5 inches by 2.5 inches, and I place them together. This third piece measures 1.5 by 3 inches, and I'm gonna place this on the top, making sure that this side is even, and then this side has this little 1/2-inch protrusion. I cover all of my sides in silver craft paper except for these 3 sides. I cut a 3/4 inch strip of silver craft paper, and I start wrapping it from this side all the way around until you get a piece that looks like this. And I already did it on this side. Well, I filmed it, but this corner was actually blocking it off. So I'm gonna do it again. You're gonna use a pair of scissors and go from this corner to this corner. Let's see if I can get it in the frame this time and chop it off so that from the side it looks like this. Let's also add a couple silver beads to the front, and of course this signifies where the binoculars part is, like the part that actually looks at the tower. Now we need to put a couple more beads on this side to signify where the doll's eyes go. And of course I ended up using smaller beads than this side. Use an awl to make a hole about 1 inch away from the side where the doll will put her eyes. Let's now go back to the first piece that we made and see if we can slip these 2 pieces into these holes that we just made. Like this. Add in our printable, place it on top of the very first piece that we made. I also used a tiny little bit of paint just so that it wasn't so shiny. And you guys, look at this. The best part about this, I think, is the fact that it moves. So it's adjustable depending on your doll's height. But oh my God, I am obsessed with this. This came out so good. 10 out of 10. And I was thinking that we can place it right over here in front of the Eiffel Tower. You guys, I am obsessed. Up next, let's make our lamppost. Let's start off with 3 pieces of foam board. This piece measures 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. This piece measures 3 inches by 3 inches. And this piece measures 2.5 by 2.5. I'm gonna place them together like this. For our next 2 pieces, this one measures 2 by 4 inches. This one measures 1.5 by 4 inches. And I'm gonna place them together on the side that measures 4 inches. Another 1.5 by 4 inch piece on the other side of the 2 by 4 inch piece, and close it off with another 2 by 4 inch piece on this side. Stick the first piece that we made and the second piece that we made together like this. Add a 2.5 by 2.5 piece on the top and a 1.5 by 1.5 piece on the top of that. Cut a round wooden dowel down to about 6.5 inches and place it on the top. I added some of my glue molding to it, and you guys, I think this is gonna look amazing once we paint it. Obviously, this is gonna be the post part of our lamppost, so let's make the lamp part. I cut a piece of plexiglass that measures 1.5 inches tall, 1.5 inches going across the bottom, but the top of it measures 2 inches going across, so I get these slanted sides. I cut a second one identical to it, and I'm just gonna place these together like this, using a piece of electrical tape to join them together. Repeat with another piece and another. Cut a black piece of foam board that measures 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and because we use electrical tape to put these pieces together, we are going to be able to wrap them around this piece of foam board like this. Use a little bit more of our electrical tape to cover up the glue. I have this massive glass bead that I want to use as my light bulb, so I'm going to place this in the middle. For the top of our lamppost, let's cut a piece that measures 2 3/4, another piece that measures 2 1/4, and this last piece over here measures 1 3/4, and we're going to put them together like this. Add a little molding to the top, place it on top of our lamp, and place our lamp on top of our post. Paint it black, and you guys, oh my God, this is literally one of the best things I've ever made in my entire life. Actually, I kind of want to add in some molding right under here. And you guys, if the binoculars were a 10 out of 10, this one's 100 out of 10. Like, I'm not kidding. This is probably my favorite thing that we've made for the day. Now, obviously, we can't just have one lamppost. Hello, I'm gonna go make another one, stage this entire scene, and I'll be right back with the finished product. I added a sign to our coffee shop, and this is what I got. Alright you guys, we did it. Our Parisian coffee shop is finally complete. And you guys know I'm not lying when I say this is definitely one of my favorites. Because literally everything is my favorite. It's giving charm, it's giving detail, it's giving luxury miniature realness. But let's talk about what's happening in front of the Eiffel Tower. Yes, that was an engagement. Those were two of my favorite dolls, Franchesca and Liam, and I've decided they're gonna get married, which means this wasn't just a build. This is the beginning of a full series. Over the next month or two, our dolls are gonna go on a world tour leading up to the main event, the wedding. And now that we have an engagement, obviously the next step is to have an engagement dinner. Hello. But here's where you come in. Every single event is going to be held in a different city all across the world. So I want you guys to tell me in the comments where we should go next. I am so excited for this series. The wedding's literally gonna be next level. But if you like this video, please give it a huge thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.